We're going to talk to Erik, who is calling in from Texas. Next, Erik, you're live on Truth Wanted. What's up?
How's it going, Dan and Derek? I'm really happy you picked my call because this kind of ties into the stuff we've been talking about today and also in the past as well. I guess, a lot of these beliefs maybe don't necessarily hurt people, or you can believe in UFOs as long as maybe you don't spend all of your money on it, whatever. I guess, if you have the truth and someone's maybe starting to dip their toes, let's say acupuncture was the first call. If you're a doctor, for certain you have the proof that it doesn't work, and someone's like, hey, I think I want to try this, and just give it a try. Do they have an obligation to be like, it doesn't do anything? We know it doesn't do anything. Don't waste your time. Don't waste your money. Or at what point, should you kind of interject into somebody's just wanting to try something new? I think last week you talked about the gentleman who was or you were talking with a gentleman who had somebody wanted to cure diabetes with rocks. That's obviously extremely hurtful.
Right.
But, there's kind of a leading up path. If they start wearing crystals, should you be like, hey, man, that doesn't have any vibrational effects on your body? At what point should you interject if you have information that would maybe not change their mind, but more burst their bubble? It kind of makes you the downer of the party. If you're like, that's just bullshit, that doesn't make sense. You just become a downer and you pop the bubble for no reason sometimes, and sometimes it can help people.
This is a great question, and it's something that I think about a lot. So I worry about the backfire effect, and the backfire effect being this idea that if you show someone immediately information that's going to contradict their worldview, they have a higher tendency to reject it than to accept it. In that moment, because of their amygdala response, they get really defensive, and it's just not super effective in changing minds. Now, there's been some recent research about how much the backfire effect is actually a real thing, which I haven't fully analyzed yet, but there's been some controversy in there too. So I'll have to look at that when I do. So, but I'm still using that framework as of right now of trying to keep that in mind when I talk to people about this stuff, because when you go to a doctor, you expect them to tell you what to do and what not to do because they have earned that sense of credibility and that authority. If I'm talking to somebody on the street, they don't know me. They don't know how much I've read about specific stuff. I just could be some guy. And if I say, hey, there's actually a study that proves that healing rocks are bullshit, they don't have any reason to necessarily believe me in that moment over anybody else they meet. So you do have to kind of build a credibility there, even if you want to try to interject. But let's say you get into that situation, because I think all of us have. I think everybody who's watched this show has gotten to a situation where somebody's at the party and they're talking some mad bullshit. You want to say something, right? I still struggle with this on what the limit is. If there's an immediate harm, then yeah, absolutely, go for it. If someone's like, hey, I think I don't know, what's a crazy thing to say? Putting a gun to their head and pulling the trigger is going to make them better. Don't. That there's something there that you should not be doing. Yeah. But usually it's more abstract. It could be like COVID, for example. People saying, "Oh, I don't want to get the vaccination because I don't think there's enough research on it, and the government's trying to hurt us and stuff." Okay, that may not hurt me right now because you may not have COVID, but you can definitely hurt people down the line. So I say yes in general. You should feel the right to talk to people about things. And if they're going to give their opinions, you should be able to give yours. I think that's fair for most situations. How to deal with that, though, is a different question altogether. And what's the most ethical way to talk about it? I'm still not 100% sure. To be honest with you, I've been doing this show since 2018. I've been talking to people all the time. And I still don't know the absolute best way to do it. But I do know that at least having a conversation about it is better than not, for sure. Go ahead, Erik.
Yeah, I just wanted to say I don't know if there's ever a right way. That's less of my question. It's my question is more of should you, if you have the information, even if it's not gonna help them right then, should you go back into the cave and try to lead your friends out? Should you even try to do that? Or because I like to think I live a life of very live and let live, but
yeah,
I see my friends hurting themselves or in certain ways or believing in things, and I'm just I could burst their bubble and ruin their day, or I could just let them have that belief.
Well,
I don't know. I guess should you is
yeah.
The question.
I was going to say,
so.
Dan, absolutely. To answer your question, I can only subjectively give you my experience on this. And I would say for most of the time, you know the situation. You know whether it's harmful or not in this particular situation. Me arguing with my mom or my sister on whether they should go to church on Sunday because they believe that Jesus is the Son of God, whatever that actually means to them, I'm not going to get through to them. And we can have that conversation when they're comfortable. I do think that they build up walls when you come after them. But harmful things, we all know how harmful something might be. Like with drug addiction, I get people who go, listen, I've got surgery coming up, and they're just a month clean off the street fentanyl. And then they want to talk about, well, look, I've got a surgery coming up, and should I go get the surgery? And I'm like, is it like you have to? No. I want to get some aesthetics done, and they're going to prescribe me the same stuff I was hooked on the streets for many years on. Well, not a good idea. You just got off that stuff. Here, right. You're just getting prescribed that stuff. So, I mean, you kind of have to assess the situation from my experience. I wouldn't run into anyone and just try to change their mind. It just doesn't work that way. Oftentimes, they need to come to you or open up in some way. But if it's harmful, you got to do it.
I think, Eric, it never hurts to ask someone if they're willing to have a conversation about a subject. Okay. I have somebody that works with me who asked me the other day, who knows that I'm an atheist, who knows that I do this show, and came up to me and said, hey, I told them for some reason we were having a conversation about theological non-cognitivism. Okay. And then they came and asked me and said, hey, I've been recently listening to a podcast about atheism, and I wanted to know, how do you define atheism? Okay. So even though she's a Christian and she definitely has different beliefs from me, that is the absolute best way she could have asked me to have a conversation with her about it. One, I happen to be very interested in those topics and knowledgeable enough to be able to talk about it reasonably with my own beliefs and my own story and stuff. But she was genuinely interested in wanting to know what I wanted to know without, I never got that sense that, she had to convert me right then and there. And even if you want to convert somebody right then and there to your own ideas, I think we still have to come in with this attitude of, well, the best I can do right now is probably plant a seed of doubt. And I can at least do that much. You can at least ask someone if they're willing to listen to somebody else's opinion where they may not be able to get it, depending on their circumstances. They may not be challenged in that area. So I'd say, it's probably worth at least asking. If you can have a conversation, right?
Yeah, I guess the only time I've ever felt so compelled to express my belief deeply was when someone started talking about anti-COVID vaccine and how could you do that? And I was like, okay, I can tell you how I could do that. And I was I kind of word vomited at him, which I know wasn't helpful, but it got me thinking about the compulsion to feel like I have to interject here, regardless of what he's going to say, he's going to believe what I'm going to say or not. It's I had this compulsion to just dude, I've been reading a lot about it. I know a lot about the studies. It's been really well researched. There's yes, some people are having breakthrough cases, and yes, some people are still getting the vaccine, but are still getting sick, but it's a lot less. And I kind of just came with all the stuff I've been reading because I've been really stressed about it and reading a lot about it. And that compulsion made me think about the other places in my life of at what point is it right to really step in? I think about climate change and other things as well, about how people live their life. It's hey man, at what point is it okay to just make sure you tell your friends to recycle, or you're having a party, hey man, throw that in the right can, please. There's some things seem so little, but it's not, it's the little things add up. So at what point do you say
I agree, Eric.
Just a hard line. I have to draw it.
There is a sense in there because there is people of liberal persuasion who like to say we should all just live and let live and just let people believe what they believe. And I disagree with that. I think there is a limit. I think there is something that we can do at the end of the day, at least help people make informed decisions about their lives or about their beliefs. And I tried to play that role by doing this, but also in my daily life and in having conversations with people. And I think that's a noble compulsion, Eric. I don't think that's a bad thing. I do think that it can easily come across as getting into people's business right? Even when you don't mean to, you just are passionate about what you know about
or whatever.
yeah. No, I listen, like when I was first getting into the veganism stuff, okay, because I only reason I bring it up because you mentioned veganism in the call screen thing. Like I was reading books about it and stuff, and I was like learning a lot more than and dealing with misconceptions there. And when I started to have conversations with people about it, I was like, oh, like these other people have not talked about it as much as I have, and I feel like that, or looked into it as much as I have, and I realized this is starting to become a one-sided conversation there. And I felt the need for a little bit to talk about it a little bit because like I felt like it was really important. And I got the same sense when I was first becoming an atheist, like when I was first wanting to talk to people about this stuff too. So I totally relate to you there, Eric. I think more people should have that kind of compulsion to talk about stuff, especially if they're really researched about it and want to do it. I think people are too shy and they don't want to because they're afraid of the social consequences. But you know, there's real harm if we don't do something about it sometimes. So I'm more in the camp of do it more often than not, but there's always going to be contexts where it may not be appropriate at that point of time. Case in point, maybe you don't want to talk about the reality of an afterlife at a funeral or something like that. Like that people have those limits. People have to have their personal limits. And I get that, but you know.
Yeah, I concur. Everything you said there was really well said. I feel like from experience, and this the last thing I'll say on this particular subject is that from my experience, this is the reason I started a channel is so I don't have to necessarily go pop everyone's bubble. Like the most effective things are when people actually come and want to listen to what you have to say. And you can sometimes create environments where conversations like that you can happen. You don't have to have a show Truth Wanted or a channel of your own or anything. You can have like the neighbors down the street and say, hey, we can disagree. Like if you're mature enough to be able to tolerate other people's ideas, even if you think it's crazy, you might go, no, I don't believe that at all. But make the point that you're willing to listen to them if they're willing to listen to you. That's the best way to bridge that gap and create that conversation that maybe some education can illuminate the situation. You might be wrong and thought they're crazy. I mean, I'm not saying we entertain all the crazy ideas out there. I'm saying there might be something you think is right and you're wrong about. It's good to have these conversations so you keep exploring. And I like to use the scientific method personally to try and get to answers.
Yeah. So there you go, Eric. I don't know if I actually helped you or not. I think it was more sharing in my commisery with you about that limit there, because I think everybody has to deal with that. And I don't think there's a hard and fast rule. At least I haven't found one yet. Other than I'm the type of person that's more likely than not going to be willing to challenge somebody if I have the opportunity to. And maybe that's just me. I wish other people were more like that, to be honest with you. There's some people that are just like, oh, well, I can't explain it well, so I'm going to send you a YouTube video. But really, I think everybody should be their own ambassadors to their beliefs and how they got to it, right? So anyway,
that's fun.
That's just me. Yeah. Eric, any thoughts?
Yeah, I just want to say I appreciate it because it's, like you try to come across as truthful. Like I'm just trying to offer you what I know to be true. And, in some cases it gets contentious and you lose a friend over trying to tell them that, recycling does actually help the planet or something.
Yeah.
That's just a silly example. Or like eating meat's really bad for the planet. Well, I don't know about that or whatever.
Right.
And just I guess just speaking the truth is more important in most cases and trying to bring people to the truth than like maybe the consequences.
Yeah. Speaking,
but hopefully they learn something or come back to you and say, hey, I'm sorry you were right about that thing, I guess is maybe the best case scenario.
There are consequences. There are consequences to speaking truth to power. There are. And it sucks. It sucks. It can lose friendships. I've had personal relationships gone a little haywire because of my beliefs and where I'm at and because of my story. But it's my story and it's mine alone. And I'm very confident in the story that I've had. I'm more confident in where I'm at now than I've ever been before because I actually took time to really look into why I believe the things that I do and why I don't believe the other stuff. Most people don't have that privilege. They just don't have that time or they don't have that interest. And that's fine if you don't have that interest. Honestly, not everybody needs to be like me or be interested in the same things I am, but it is important to listen to people who are really informed on the topics that they are. And unfortunately, at least in the United States, we have lacked that culture in recent years. And it's why we're seeing so much skepticism with the COVID situation and just the scientific community at large when in terms of climate change and, other issues like that. So it makes me sad, but the best I can do is just change the people around me. And some of the most meaningful conversations I've had have been off the air with friends and family about what they believe and why. So I hope you have meaningful conversations too, Erik. Thanks for calling in to the show today, and I appreciate your time. I hope you have a good one. Good call there. Any other thoughts on that, Derek?
I concur, man. I mean, everything you said was right on the money. It's like, am I going to regurgitate the same thing you're saying? I think there's a lot of power in that and how we should approach these things. Mm-hmm. I personally find that when you get them by yourself and it's not, your ego is not in the way, and you approach them like, this is another human who has a family, show empathy and kind of try to like scratch the whole what you're actually concerned about arguing with them about, and approach them in a different way where you're showing that I really am a friend. Like, you can disagree with me, giving that a shot. I don't care if at the end of the day I get cussed out or I'm viewed in a certain way, whatever. I get that all the time. Mm-hmm. It's a lot of times that works. Mm-hmm. And it allows you to peek into the door and say, okay, let's have a real heart to heart. And here's why I think this is important.
Yeah. And it's a good like ambassadorship just for people who hold your position, right? Like, I used to think that atheists were just cold, sad people, just like had a lack of something in their hearts. And you know why I thought that? Because I didn't really know a lot of atheists. I didn't really have anybody in that community. At least the people that I did know who were atheists, they didn't tell me that. And I wish they did. I wish they did, because it's full of people with all kinds of life experiences, with all kinds of different points of views. And you cannot just stereotype groups of people into one whole like that. It just doesn't work. There's a multitude of people out there, and that should go with our approach too, by the way, with how we had talked to others and how they typically believe. You cannot talk to a Christian and just expect them to think that they're the same evangelical type that you were when you were a Christian or anything like that. You really have to adjust your approach to your audience as well when you're having these conversations.